This episode of the .NET Dev Show is brought to you fondly with the folks over at Visual Studio Live. VSLive is a chain of events all throughout the year, all throughout the country. If you're in the Americas, they put on some really great, content. A lot of it is also virtual, so you can, just tune in for, 2-day, 3-day, all-day virtual, training. You can just soak in, or the real benefit is when you actually come to an in-person event, and VSLive puts on several shows throughout the year. We had one in Vegas, but the next one that's coming up is in the Windy City, Chicago, end of April, actually coming up in like 2 weeks. So it should be a lot of fun. They always have, great speakers, great content. We look through all of the speakers and the content. It's just, anything new and happening, excuse me, in the .NET ecosystem from, Microsoft folks, from, community folks. Yeah, I know, except for that guy. Everybody else is awesome. But should be a great show. Yeah, go ahead. I do. I sure do. But it's not just for Chicago, though, because the next ones that are coming up, because people are busy, so choose whichever one works based on your travel or work schedules. This one's particularly nice one because it is right on Microsoft campus. This is coming up in early August. Should be early fall, beautiful. And then the big one that they do is in VSLive Orlando, which is actually a combination of 4 different conferences all rolled into one. So .NET and AI and data platform, everything together. So for any of those shows, if you may want to go, there's a little promo code for you. Use the code NET Dev Show, and this would actually work for not just Chicago, but also for Redmond and Orlando as well. So choose the time of the year that works best for you for training. The laytest and greatest on Microsoft and other stacks as well. Come and join us. I brought on Ed to teach me some new things here today. We are squarely in Blazor land. We'll try to bring in a little bit of Maui here and there, but I have been a fan of Blazor. This has come a long way since 2017, 2018 is when we first saw Blazor, and here we are 5 years down the line, very production ready with lots of success stories, and the team is working hard. Both Microsoft and our engineers who build components on top of Blazor. It's a rich ecosystem. So there are 2 things in particular that I wanted to pick your brains on, Ed. First is we talked about AI. We got to do AI over everything because otherwise you're not cool enough, right? Before we start here, though, maybe you can help answer a question here from the chat room. Timebender360, I love that handle, actually. What's the best project structure in .NET 8 if you want to do pre-use or reuse Razor components in Maui and Blazor Wasm app sharing common web API? I think Ed and me have talked about this. Like, it's the same, the Razor class library, that's a common shared library. I mean, we can show this again.
Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, and
Let
I think
me find something while you chat there.
Yeah, and Ed might also have an API thing that he was, tossing around. But it's no different for you to reuse those Razor components. It's just, take it off your Blazor project and put it in a Razor class library. It's just a class library. Reference it from both your Blazor web project as well as from your Maui project. And up front, you have to register those assemblies a little bit, but otherwise everything works. So you can share your code, your components, your routes, your styles, and all good things.
Okay, so I have an ebook on this. Plus, there is
it's like shamelessly setting you up for a plug.
There's the show that let's see, swap to my screen real quick. The most recent.
That one. Yeah.
The most recent .NET community stand-up
show. Yeah. So this is Beth. So they're working on this a little bit more. So I think Ed, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was just going to say Beth is working with the team over on the .NET team to make a unified template for Blazor Hybrid that has a web deployment.
Yeah, so you have maybe seen Ed or me do this. We can point more to our GitHub repos where we have it. So there is no inbuilt project template in Visual Studio or VS Code that does it for you, but also nothing stopping you from doing it yourself. It's just a couple of projects. You throw in the Blazor project, you throw in the Razor cluster, you throw in a Maui library, and then it works together. What's interesting is, yes, the render modes do sometimes get in the way, which is what we'll talk about a little bit more. But there are ways around it. So for the most part, it doesn't matter all that much in Maui, but you still need to be respectful to what you're doing on the web as well.
Yeah, and then I published an ebook about this as well because there isn't a template yet. Maybe Beth could use this as a resource. You think?
Yeah, I mean they're working on it.
I'm just teasing. This is basically what they're trying to build for the template, though,
right.
And it talks about not only what you need to do to use those things together, but there's going to be some little gotchas and landmines in there that you're going to hit. Like if you run a web server on localhost, you can't attach an emulator to it because the emulator doesn't know what localhost is. And you're going to run into issues there. And I tell you how to solve that with some tools. So give the book a read as well.
Yeah. Foolish Scrambled, good to see you. Hello. All right, so let's switch to mine again. I want to dig in a little bit into this because I think that's going to dovetail into talking about render modes a little bit more. This is an experiment here, folks. So this is called .NET Smart Components. So normally, so Steve Sanderson is a wonderful engineer behind a lot of things that you see in Blazor land. Him and Dan Roth and the whole team, they're always trying to push for more innovation. This is something they came up with because normally when you try to infuse your .NET apps with AI, all of the shiny things about AI, when the rubber meets the road and you think about how to incorporate AI into your .NET apps, there's a lot of learning to do. There are concepts you need to understand, like what exactly is a large language model? How do I use it? What are the APIs? How do I train my models? Where do I deploy this stuff? How does my APIs, my endpoints, what's a semantic kernel, and all the good things. Or you can just start taking smaller bites of this and try to infuse a little bit of intelligence in your AI without redesigning everything. So this is an experiment. So we do not use it in a production app yet, but because this is a .NET 8 experiment, may or may not see light of the day, but most likely will because it's got some nice things to it. So they talk about a smart paste, which is where you copy something in your clipboard, and if you have a form, which is the standard name address fields, they can just paste pretty intelligently. There is a smart text area where as you start typing, given a certain context, it can pre-fill certain things for your user. There's a combo box which does not just matching on the exact or the starting letter of what you're typing, but also like a semantic matching. And this is all out in the GitHub repo. They are doing it first for Blazor and MVC or Razor pages, with the potential that this might be for WPF and Maui and other things as well. So if you want to play around with this, that's the GitHub repo. So I tried and I failed on a few things. Maybe some things work here. So maybe Ed, you can help me out. So
sure.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I have it open from yesterday, which is nice.
Okay, let's start. Let's rewind quite a bit. So first of all, do you have an OpenAI account?
Yeah. So this is something they talk about. You have to understand that some of the smartness comes from AI. Yes, some of it you can do it locally. Like for example, where's the getting started guide? Some of this stuff, like the local embedding, that actually works locally. You don't need a local AI. But for everything else, like the combo box, the smart paste, you need an AI backend, because essentially you are calling into those GPT models to say, I have this, can you make sense of this? So those models are already trained and you do not want to reinvent the wheel. So be it OpenAI or be it Azure or OpenAI, you do need a backend.
Yeah, so that was one of the more difficult parts that I ran into, is because, well, if you if you use standard just OpenAI API, you can go and put your credit card in, you're good to go. If you want to use Azure OpenAI, it is currently in a closed beta, so you have to request access to that. Now they turned mine around pretty quick because I think Microsoft MVPs get a little bit of a boost in that queue. So I don't know how that is for anybody that just wants to try this on their own, but you do have to request that first, and then you have to go through the process of deploying your model.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're using OpenAI, then you don't need all of that. Yeah. So I played around with this. So take a look at this. This is a straight up .NET new Blazor app. So it's a web app. We're not getting into the render modes right now, but I mean, some of it is kind of baked in. You can kind of see the interactive render mode that they're adding in here. But this is a straight up .NET MAUI, or not MAUI, .NET Blazor project. So the default here, maybe Ed, you can explain. So let's do .NET, what's it called? New list. So if I look at my Blazor templates, I have a Blazor server app, which is clearly a server-based app with a SignalR front end, server empty app. I get the WebAssembly app and the WebAssembly standalone app. So this straight up vanilla Blazor web app, that is still a server app with a web front end, or no?
So there's, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Blazor templates now, and 2 of them are current. The rest are legacy.
Oh, I see.
So the Blazor web app is the new Blazor web app template. That's the new one. The Blazor WebAssembly standalone app is exactly how it sounds, and it is a current, the current template for doing a Blazor WebAssembly app that is either a PWA or does not require a server.
Okay, yeah, so no server
a
whatsoever.
Blazor server.
Everything is on the client side.
It can be statically served. It could be served from some other backend, PHP if you wanted to, whatever. I don't know why you do that, but you could. So that's what that is for. It is a strictly, I have a server, or maybe I have some API endpoints coming from a service that I don't own, but I want to display those in a Blazor front end. That's what you would use the Blazor standalone web app for. Those are the only 2 that you should be starting new projects with. The rest of those are for .NET 7 and below.
Got you. Okay. Well, I then chose because I just did Blazor web app. So what I get here is, if I look at the CS project, so this is a .NET 8 app, normal implicit usings and whatnot, and this is just a straight up vanilla Blazor web app. Then I do like the changes here. They moved things out a little bit. Layouts are now in their own folder. Main layouts and nav menus are right there, and then there are your pages, and the program starts up and everything is good to go. So to this, I've added a few things. First is we are bringing in this smart components, ASP.NET Core. That's the preview NuGet package. Everything is in preview. The other 2 are optional, but I do need them, which is why I'm bringing them in. So inference and then local embeddings. So with that, the only thing I'm doing here in program.cs is we are wiring up, it's a dependency injection system, just like MAUI, just like any other .NET app now. We have a builder, that's a .NET generic builder. We have Razor components. Here, we are saying, let's add some smart components with that inference backend. This is straight up from the docs, nothing else. I am also adding this local embedding thing. We'll get to that in a second, but that is about it. Then in my app dev settings, there is a little bit of code here that has my API key, my OpenAI API key. So the server knows, or the app knows where to go talk. This should not be open in a JSON file like this, but just to play around, and then you can put it in a secret and so on.
Or advertised on a stream like we just did.
Yeah, it's fine. we're amongst friends here, right? Yeah. Then here is my home.razor. So things start out with hello world. Here's my smart components. And here is where I'm starting to just play around. So I don't have the smart paste yet. I have a smart text area and a combo box. So the text area, it seems like it has like two things that are required. There's a value and there's a user role. The value is essentially like a starting text, right? So I am pretending to be an app that I'm making for somebody to plan a vacation. So the user role thing is important because it kind of sets the tone with OpenAI. And you can also do, special strings. So let's go check out the docs here in the text area. You could, let's bump up the fonts here a little bit. You could set certain other things like this one here is for like a staff at a Wild West theme. So if you give it certain user phrases, it tries to get the tone of what exactly how you should be speaking, and then that's how the suggestions are kind of rooted in. So that's pretty nice. So I'm doing a little bit of that. I don't have the tone yet. I'm just saying, hey, I'm a user who's just trying to plan a vacation. So that part should be pretty simple. So let's go ahead and run this. We are going to spin up a new terminal. Let's do .NET run. This is hello world stuff. For some reason, my browser doesn't come up, but that's fine. We can load it up. There we go. All right, so hello world Blazor, here's my text area. And this is that text that comes up with what would you like for a dream vacation? So I can take that out, and then as I start typing, it is making those calls to OpenAI. I would maybe like to, come on, no, nothing, plan. Oh, there you go. It's starting to plan.
Okay. Yep. So it may just need more suggestions
Yeah,
to
there
be
you
a
go.
little
So
bit more.
it's coming along. It's a little slow.
Yeah.
Like I would like to. The moment I started saying beach, it's like, oh, beach vacation to Hawaii, because like
Yeah.
it doesn't have any context right now. All it knows is from my user role that all it knows is, hey, I am just trying to plan a vacation. Hold on. Let me get these closed up a little bit. All it knows is a user trying to plan a vacation.
Yep.
So
the more specific you get
yeah.
with that, the more it'll be able to auto-complete things.
Yeah. So you can see like it's within a context of what phrases you give it, what roles you give it. That's the context in which it's trying to do. So that's just the text area, and I mean you can think of lots of examples of where this might be useful. Steve and the team, they talk about customer service. So, or you're talking to like you're replying to things as an HR person, or open source, you're replying to a GitHub issue, business process tracking, things like that. So if you give it more context, it tries to, try being a little bit smarter about it. Now, the combo box is a little bit more interesting. So this one here, it's wired up. It's just a smart combo box. It's got a binding value. This one is a type of vacation. That's the text too. But it's the URL mapping here is an API of the type vacation categories. And that is wired up in the CS proj. No, actually in the program.json. So here I am saying, let's use some local embedding. So I mean, once you start typing something in a combo box, it's kind of lame where it just matches on excuse me, the exact text that you're giving it, but you want it to be a little bit more smarter, like a semantic match. So here I'm trying to say, hey, go find. So essentially here it's pretty sweet what it does. Let's look at an example here. So let's look at local embeddings. This is not using OpenAI. This is probably the only thing you can do without OpenAI. But essentially, if you let's say if you give it a few strings, what it's trying to do is it's trying to convert natural language strings into vectors, right? And this can be just a few hard-coded things, or you can, think about putting this in a database or entity framework or anything else, and then vector databases are a whole other beast of its own. But this is just literally trying to compare, like sentiment analysis, but it's literally trying to compare strings and whether they belong together or not, and how similar they are. So here's an example of them saying, here are certain sports, right? So soccer, tennis, swimming, blah, blah, blah. If you give it a ball game and you ask for find the closest matches, then it will say soccer, golf, and tennis, and skip swimming and horse riding. So it has a little bit of intelligence to associate that these are the sports that are played with the ball. and these are the sports that are not. So with that little bit, none of this is actually local here. The way I'm using it, this is going off to OpenAI, but you can do this local. I'm giving it a few types of vacation, like beach, ski resort, cruise, whatever, and that's the API. So I'm mapping that smart combo box to this API, so it can call in locally and then go off to OpenAI. And I'm saying, hey, find the closest. So with that, what happens, I think, if I am hooking this up right, is if I start typing in here. So see, if I do sand, it gives me beach as the first option.
Yeah.
But it's not smart enough. Like it's still giving me ski.
Skiing.
Yeah, I mean hike I can understand, but like if I do like drinks, then it's like, oh, all inclusive. That's what you want. I think if I do like food, yeah, all inclusive. So that's understandable. If I do let's see, mountains, oh no, mountains with all inclusive. Really, you didn't give me hikes? Yeah, okay. Maybe trails.
How about snow?
Yeah, trails is giving me hike. Yeah, snow should be yeah, ski right up, and hike as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
am I using this right? Is this how it's meant to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not very hard to not a new terminal. I wanted the old terminal. Where's my task? Anyways, I can stop it. But it's not very hard to wire this up. There is documentation on how you get things done. So it's a few things: text area, combo box, and they have getting started guides. I mean, you can clone this whole repo and try to work with it, or you can just try to, like, some of this is like, how do I add this to my MVC or Razor pages? I mean, there's documentation on all of that. So it's nice. You can do tag helpers, but this is only as good as going to be, how much context you give AI, essentially. However, I tried doing the same thing on Maui, as one does, and I failed. So maybe you can tell
Uh-oh.
me, Ed, what I did wrong, because I think it's just something very basic. Because the NuGet packages are just not meant to work for those runtime identifiers. So Blazor Smart Components is what I looked at. I tried doing Maui Smart Components, not doing Maui as in straight up, XAML and C#, excuse me, but like Maui with Blazor. So here's my CS proj. Yeah, Android SDK. I know. Here's my CS proj. This is straight up Maui with Blazor. So you notice I have the SDK style project, and it's a Razor SDK style. Here are my target frameworks. I got Android, iOS, and Mac. Normal Maui stuff. But the moment I try to bring in the Smart Components NuGet package, it complains to say, hey, I'm not supposed to be working with that runtime. So I'm not sure, because I mean, it is a Blazor app essentially. I mean, I know they need a server side to store your API keys, but otherwise it's a Blazor app, right? So the moment I do this, I'm not sure. Let's check. Yeah, I'm not doing anything else. Maui program.cs. Yeah, the smart components thing is off here. So the moment I do this, if I try doing a build, I get into issues to say that, hey, there was no runtime pack for that particular Mac Catalyst thing. Or maybe it's just a Mac Catalyst error. Do you think it'll run on iOS?
I'm doubting it. So yeah,
Let
what
me,
I'm gonna assume is
turn this off anyways. Just try iOS. Yeah, go ahead.
There's some dependency in there on ASP.NET.
Yeah.
That is not part of the Blazor hybrid deployment.
Yeah. What could it be though?
Because
why?
Because they support Razor pages and ASP.NET views, the tag helpers and stuff like that.
But I mean, if I'm
making an assumption. I have
I know. I mean, we are bringing in some ASP.NET Core components, but this is not the whole ASP.NET pipeline.
Yeah. they probably need to sort through some of the dependencies and maybe split the components out. I mean, it's an experiment, so it's probably not optimized very much. So they probably need to split those things up.
Yeah, so I can't work this on Maui yet, but Blazor works. Anything else on the smart components that you want to talk about? Or, I mean, maybe we can switch to your screen if you want to show me more about the render, UI.
Yeah, so give me 1 sec. I was just kind of looking at the documentation on the smart components to see. It says it is available for ASP.NET Core 6 and later with either Blazor or MVC Razor pages. They specifically don't say Maui in there.
Well, I mean, we may add support for native apps later.
Yeah.
I was wondering maybe if I can just do the local embedding thing, which doesn't need a OpenAI, so maybe it doesn't need as much of the ASP.NET Core. But like I would still need the smart components NuGet package, and that doesn't like it. So there are some interesting performance numbers on the local embeddings, like where the tipping point might be. Like it doesn't even need like GPU, so they ran some numbers on like how many milliseconds it might be for an array of local embeddings, and because this gets into other things like retrieval augmented things or other types of semantic kernel things. Let's see if I can find that.
Let me see something else too. I have the smart components on mine. I'm going to see if it has like a dependency graph I can look at. Smart components, ASP.NET, components web. That's Blazor, I think. I don't see a dependence. Well, it could just be because of the project type I have it in.
I don't think it's meant to go with any of those runtime target frameworks.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would post an issue on the repo and see what Steve says.
Yeah.
There's definitely a dependency conflict in there somewhere.
Yeah. But I was reading this up last night on the performance numbers. If you just wanted to use local embedding locally, so they're saying up to 1,000 candidates to find the closest, from natural language to a vector match. It's about like 0.06 milliseconds on CPU. So if you use shorter character strings, then it's faster. So that's not much, and that's all local. So maybe I'll play around with that a little bit more. But this gets complex. It's just like layers of an onion. This is AI. So the moment you bring in semantic kernel, that's the orchestration layer. Actually, like GitHub Copilot uses semantic kernel to have more context about your code base, so you can start building up your own things on top of it. But this gets complex quickly. Yeah. Okay, Ed, do you want to show me more about render modes and what we need to be careful about, especially for Maui?
So yeah, we can put a little Maui context on there. I think it's going to be a little bit more basic with Maui, actually. Just give me 1 sec. I put something on my screen and everything went black. So, oh, there we go. Okay. The awkward things your computer wants to do when you're live streaming. Like completely blank out your screen for you. Let's see here. There we go. So hopefully you could see that okay.
Yep.
And now I've lost. There we go.
Can I use this, by the way?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I tweeted this yesterday, by the way. If you want to grab that image, you can. Or I can send you the raw image with
Yeah, this is good.
you can edit if you need to. So the background here I generated in AI. Why not?
As one does. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just plugged in my text inside of PowerPoint.
Hmm.
So in .NET 8, we got some new render modes, right? There's the new web app template that you were showing that includes all of these things. And by default, we'll show it in Visual Studio too. Maybe that'll help give a little context to what's going on here. But when you do file new project in Visual Studio, I don't know what you get on the command line, Sam, but in VS, you get options.
Yeah, we don't get options.
Those options on the command line, you probably have to do little question mark or whatever to get those to show up. In VS, you get drop down boxes. You get one that says none, server, WebAssembly, or automatic. Now,
Can I pause for a second? Can I ask you why? So Blazor prior to .NET 8 had pretty simple way of operating. You either
yeah.
go server or you go WebAssembly, or you can do something in between, which is maybe streamed or SignalR or however it is that you want. But is the WebAssembly route slower because you have to load up everything like
Yeah,
from a PWA?
so the .NET runtime for WebAssembly weighs about 800K to a meg. So you need that before you can do anything interactive with your website. And that means you're sitting and waiting for those resources to download. And that doesn't include any custom code that you have in your app.
Yep.
So any DLLs that you built, well, they're generally small, a lot smaller than the framework itself. Take additional time, and then static resources, images, CSS, all that. You're waiting for all that to load.
Yeah.
Load times on your app can get a little bit sluggish when you're using WebAssembly.
Did we cache any of this like CDNs?
No, I don't remember the reasoning for that. I think it had to do something with trimming. So when you build your app out, things are trimmed out that you don't need. And if they CDN'd everything, then you would have all of it all of the time. I think it was something to do with that. So we never got a CDN version of this. So, WebAssembly takes longer to load. You can get, I think the attention span of a user is like sub 4 seconds, and they're off to something else, and they think your app doesn't work. So to alleviate that, we have a couple different things that we could do. So one of the big things that came in .NET 8 was static rendering. Before, you could not do Blazor without some sort of interactive mode. You either had to run it on the server or run it on WebAssembly, and it had to be interactive. In .NET 8, we got static rendering. So you can create a Razor component and just deliver the HTML from it to the browser and not set up any kind of interactive mode. So no C# code like running in the background. You're not going to be clicking on anything, doing anything that the browser is going to respond to. It's just literal static HTML in the browser. Old school, right?
Yeah.
Very similar to how the old Razor works without the JavaScript part. And you just serve up HTML. So that's what we're doing with the static rendering.
But does static include some sort of pre-rendering, or
Static is just that. It is only pre-rendering.
it's only pre-rendering? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
So you static render on the server, send that
Just
HTML
shipping
to the
HTML.
client,
Yeah. Okay.
and then once the client has it, that's the end of it. You don't interact with it. You can do a classic form post, like where you're doing a full page refresh post back. And that happens even when you navigate. So what they added was something called enhanced navigation. This is a little bit of JavaScript that runs on the browser. It does a little diffing algorithm that figures out what it has to redraw when the page gets repainted. And it only redraws the things that changed between navigation. And it only works on Razor routing. So anything that you route to that's not a Razor component does not get enhanced. So enhanced navigation is kind of a progressive enhancement step that makes it feel a little bit more like a spa, even though it's not running a full-on Blazor spa. Streaming rendering is something that you can have as well, and it can be used with enhanced navigation. And this is for statically rendered pages that are going to fetch some data before they display. And what it will do is it will paint the page with some sort of loading statement, whether it's a spinner, a message that says it's loading, doing whatever. It will hold that that web request open. It's not a WebSocket. It's not anything real high tech. It's just literally holding the connection open and waiting for the server to finish its data fetch, and then it will complete the rendering operation. So you'll get the initial component rendered out with a loading message, and then Blazor will come in and patch the new data into it and then close that connection out. So there's still no interactivity mode, but it makes your long-running processes look a little more spa-like. So you can use these things together. Static server rendering, enhanced navigation, streaming rendering can all work at the same time.
Do you know what Time Bender is talking about?
Does enhanced navigation fix the scroll issue? The scroll issue is not a bug, it is a feature.
Well, what is the scroll issue?
So when you're using enhanced navigation, what you typically want to do is preserve the user's scroll position. So, for example, if streaming rendering kicks in, you don't want to
Oh,
like
see.
throw their
Yeah.
scroll position out of whack. You see this a lot with ads on the web. So you're reading a nice blog article, and you get in a paragraph or two, and then all of a sudden the page just jumps wildly because some ad loaded at the top.
Yeah.
Enhanced navigation and streaming rendering actually preserve the scroll position. So that is a feature, not a bug.
Okay.
If
All right.
you don't want it to do that, you want to turn those things off.
Yeah. And Fulschnabel, what you're asking here, this is a big deal. Blazor Web View host. So we don't know. I mean, you still need. I mean, now you're talking native platforms here. WinForms, WPF, or Maui. You do need a thing that bootstrap before you get a web view and Blazor comes in. I don't know if the Blazor Web View can be a host by itself. Like, what is it going to run on?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not understanding your question entirely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah. Okay,
It's
but
like you gotta have both of those things for it to work.
yeah, unfortunately, excuse me, Fulschnabel, I mean, these are all well-established bootstrapping ways because they come with
Oh,
deep platform integration. So you
so
choose your poison, be it
I
WPF,
have your
WinForms,
answer.
or Maui.
Your answer is Blazor PWA.
Oh no, the
It's
purists
much
will
lighter.
say, yeah, the purists will say that's not a native app.
And well,
Uh,
but it, WPF won't, but you know what you can do with a Blazor PWA, Sam?
Anything other than normal?
You can run it in an Oculus Quest natively.
It's a website. You can run a website natively anywhere.
No, Chromeless. It looks and
Okay.
interacts with the OS like an application would.
So does
Installs, gets
Maui.
an icon.
So
Maui
does
does
Maui.
too, but WPF does not.
No, this WPF is Windows only. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk about interactive.
All right. So this is something that's not clear in the docs. It is if you read about 3 different pages of docs and then kind of merge them all together in your head. There's no clear statement in the docs up front that tells you this, and leaves you to make assumptions unless you literally read all of the docs end to end. You won't really realize this. So as soon as you set an interactive mode, static rendering is no longer a thing. Like that goes away. It's bye-bye, gone. That means enhanced navigation, streaming rendering, those concepts don't apply anymore. So you don't want to ever mix those things together. And there's nothing in the compiler that will tell you that. I mean, it won't hurt anything, so it doesn't throw like any kind of warning or anything like that, but it's just excessive code that's not going to even execute if you try to throw all these decorators inside of a component. So you won't ever have static rendering and enhanced navigation and those things working with interactive modes. That just doesn't exist. So there's a cutoff here. So static rendering, as soon as you choose interactive mode, goes away. You do have pre-rendering though with WebAssembly. So if you do Blazor WebAssembly, especially with this new web app template, you could set this up in the previous .NET versions of Blazor, but it usually took extra configurations to add it. Now it is on by default. You get pre-rendering out of the box. This is something that you need to be mindful of because when you have pre-rendering involved, I just did a video short on this. It'll come out in a few days. So when you add your pre-rendering and you have dependency injection, your first inclination is to go to your component, inject your service, and then go to your client's program CS file, set up dependency injection, run your app, which will then crash because you did not register a service on the server. Because pre-rendering happens on the server, you have to have a service running server side as well. So you have to go into DI twice with the new Blazor web app when you're running WebAssembly or auto render mode. So you always have to go into both program CS files and do a DI registration in both. So
Jeez,
always keep that in mind.
complicated.
Yeah, it gets complicated, especially when you're in auto mode and you're debugging and your browser already has the .NET runtime for WebAssembly loaded in it. And then, the next day or something, or maybe you open an incognito tab or a new browser window, and all of a sudden your app crashes because it went to Blazor server for a minute and you didn't register your DI there. And now it's blowing up saying you don't have a service available, and then you refresh the page and it magically works. And you're like, wait a minute, it just didn't work. And it said I'm missing a dependency. Now it's working fine because it switched back to WebAssembly where the dependency is already injected. So it can get confusing when you start dabbling with these auto render modes and pre-rendering.
Because I mean, we are calling it different names here. I understand static versus interactive, but like in the past, like I would want a little bit of pre-rendering from the server side, even though if I'm doing WebAssembly, as compared to like what we call like static assets. Those are just ship me my CSS and JavaScript and my images. I don't care about anything else. The other stuff, if I can pre-render, that's faster, reduces, or I mean, it's slower, but it reduces the load on the client side.
Yeah, so I'm gonna show another demo real quick because I have a hard out here.
I do
at
too.
11.
So Ed and me are in the same meeting at 11, so 8 minutes from now. Yeah, go ahead.
So let me show, I'll just switch this to entire screen, ignore the hall mirrors for a second. I'll get my face off of here. I've got a demo app that I built, and we'll go ahead and run this real quick. And this uses the Blazor automatic render mode and one of our new components from Telerik UI for Blazor.
And
the AI thing, I say, how does
can you bump up your
Blazor
fonts a little bit? Just the whole thing. Just bump up your zoom.
So we'll zoom that in. Thank you,
there
Sam.
You go. And if you can click the little hide button at the bottom. Yeah, my OCD is going to kick in. Okay.
So I have a nice UI component here that we built with Telerik UI for Blazor, and it's kind of an all-inclusive AI chatbot component. And all you get to do is plug in your API keys, and it pretty much lights up. And I asked it, how does Blazor pre-rendering work? And it went through and created the definition for me. And then I can continue having that conversation with the chatbot or have a new chat, etc.
Is this
So I can
WebAssembly
translate this to
or
German,
is it
for example.
where is this running?
This is running in auto render mode, and apparently my thing didn't work because it didn't come out German. But that's a
So
coding error on my part.
you said auto render. Can I, like, especially from a Maui perspective, can I just leave it to auto and just go on with my day?
Okay, so none of these things apply to Maui.
Oh, good. Good. Because
There
the
is
server
no
is
render
the
mode in
client.
Maui.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is stripping up a few things in Maui. Because if you just straight up want to share your Blazor components from your web app into Maui, then you just need to be mindful of what the web app is doing, right?
Yeah. If you're sharing, I'm trying to think if they are even going to apply in Maui or if it will just ignore them. I haven't tested it yet. I would assume it ignores the
should
render
be ignoring
mode.
because there is no server.
Yeah. Doubt
Yeah.
it will throw an error, but yeah, it should ignore any render modes because there's no server or
Right.
WebAssembly in that.
Yeah.
So it should just ignore it. I think it comes back as null to the framework, and then the framework's like, yeah, it's null. I'm not going to do anything with that. It
Yeah.
doesn't error out.
So
But
in
this,
your example, like this is a service that this is clearly running on your server.
yes. So you'll notice I've got two apps in here. Let's scope this because, okay, I can't get out of my zoom mode. Why?
I want to see
There we
what's
go.
in your cheat codes folder.
So this is doing the demo from start to end. We're already on the baked. So let's scope that up here. And I have two applications here. I have the app and the client. So this is server here, client here. And then if I dive into these, you will see I have two program CS files. My client program CS file has a service for an OpenAI service interface. And then I have OpenAI HTTP service on the client. And then let's open this up and compare this way. On the server, which is the bottom one, I have on line 15 a add scoped OpenAI service as OpenAI service.
Yeah,
Notice the HTTP on the client side. So what's happening here is if I go into services on the client and open that up,
and also the server side has Swagger and other things.
Well, the client makes a request up to the server. So it says post as JSON async. I'm going to call this OpenAI endpoint. If I'm having a full conversation, I'm going to call endpoint 2. And then on program CS, you can scroll down and you will see some minimal APIs. So I have, here's the endpoint I'm hitting on the server. It's going to pull in the OpenAI service and then call the make AI request, which then kicks off an actual request to OpenAI from the server.
And the reason why you don't want to make that OpenAI call from your client is because of the API key?
Yes. So you don't want to store the keys on the client or send requests from the client with the keys because they'll be in open plain text where everybody can grab them.
I wish there was a way of
use them.
Getting the keys from some other place and hashing it up somehow, because like it sounds like you're coming to the server just to get the key.
I think there's some tricks that you could do with Azure Key Vault.
Yeah.
It's generally not worth the frustration in setting all that up just so you can move one request down to the client. It opens up a potential security hole, even though, it's Azure Key Vaulted. But
I get it. Yeah.
You basically are like proxying the keys through.
Yeah.
They can still be grabbed and decoded and whatnot.
Yeah, I hear you. But in this example, what was your render mode?
This is automatic render mode. So if I go over to pages and click here, you will see Where is it at?
Shouldn't it be in your program?
Oh, sorry. I have it in my routes. Not routes.
Program CS.
Components, app.razor. App.razor.
Oh, there you go. Okay, you moved it up.
So I set it globally.
Sure.
So on routes on the routes component, it's rendering with interactive auto. That means every component I render in my application gets automatic mode. So I don't have any static rendering happening in this app.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm setting it. Well, actually, take that back. App.razor is statically rendered. Everything inside of it has a render mode.
Yeah.
So app.razor gets statically rendered, then routes kicks off and turns on Blazor WebAssembly, and everything inside of the router gets interactive auto mode. So it can be either server or client, depending on what I've got for resources. So the first time I load the app, it'll be SignalR. The second time I refresh or load the app, it'll be WebAssembly.
Yeah, I'm just glad we don't have to worry about all of this from Maui. We are already at the top of the hour. Time flies. I did want to respond to this quick thing here, Phil. I hear what you're saying. Wouldn't it be nice if we just had the Blazor Web View bootstrapping itself? It's complicated because of how it's engineered. I mean, they have the browser Web View component on every platform. I mean, they can give you the iOS one, Android one, Mac, and Windows one. It's just who hosts it. It is a complex machinery. I get it, but I don't think
well, you need a .NET runtime for one.
Yeah,
I mean, you can go without it, but then you're not going to get a Blazor app. You're going to get some JavaScript thing.
So by the time you bake in the .NET runtime and everything that Blazor needs to run, I mean, you are close to having what WPF or Maui has.
And there's always Electron if you want to go that route.
Yeah, and I mean, like Ed said, like PWA, that's probably your slimmest thing.
Yeah,
I mean, gets you into the store, but you don't have much platform integration.
Yeah, so. you could do this. Watch this. Let's see. Am I still sharing my screen here?
You are.
Here we'll do a NuGet.
Azure OpenAI.
So if you want to be the cheapest way possible, just do this. Go into settings on Edge, say apps, install this as an app. Install. Okay, now I've got NuGet as an application. There we go. We're done.
No, you don't.
We're done. Let's call it a day. Ship it.
You're just Chromeless. It's still a web app. Yeah.
Ship it, Sam.
Try getting a camera from your Chromeless.
Oh, you can do that. You can do that with the web.
I mean, okay, maybe camera you can, but try getting all of the 40 plus APIs that iOS or Android has.
All right, hang on. We'll do it one real quick. You said it, I'll show it.
Oh boy.
Where's my browser again? Normal browser, please. All right, here we go. So this is the app that you want to run. Should we do media capture, geolocation, web share, notifications, authentication, face detection, audio, Bluetooth, payments, AR, VR, speech synthesis, multi-touch? What are we doing natively, Sam, that we can't? A barcode detection? What are we missing?
Can you match performance of a native app? Can you match UI of a native app?
Why would I want to match the terrible UI of a native app? Why wouldn't I want my UI to be the same across my application everywhere you use it, rather than the OS you use it on?
I hear you. It's just not everybody is building the next Facebook. Yeah.
But we can do, my camera's busy, but let's see.
I hear you. I hear you.
Oh, look, there it is with the green screen. We can't do what now, Sam?
Oh, there it is. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, no, PWAs have come a long way. There's a time and place for everything. So, yeah, it's just
barcode detection.
I don't know how much of it's doing local, especially some of the AR, VR, or authentication stuff. Face detection, is it really going into iOS face detection, or is it using a third-party service to pull it off?
Let's see. Detect face. I don't know if it'll let me do this with
Yeah,
my camera
you got
running.
too many things camera tied up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you.
But it will kick off
So
the authentication that is on the device. So if I was on my Android device and I hit this, it'll come up with a thumbprint authenticator. To push notifications that are native, NFC is native, Bluetooth, it has to be native.
yeah, it's a lot of things. I give you. I'll give you that. Yeah. But
Yeah.
pick the right tools for your project. If PWA is suitable for you, go for it. Yeah.
And of course I can install it.
Yeah.
And this works on the Oculus Quest as well.
Yeah, of course. The only caveat is you're entering Apple's walled garden. So if they close the gates someday, which they won't, you're going to be locked out a little bit because it's not a native app. That's it from us. And be well, be productive, and we'll see you around.